Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180 for the best in Saturday Talk Radio at 1 o'clock, and on 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock Saturday, and for the best in Wednesday Talk Radio on 1410 KERI on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Hey, Clay, I heard we're the best, and we were actually voted the best syndicated radio show in Kern County.
Yeah, we're also the only one.
Well, let's not confuse the issue with facts. Your host is Clay Koerner, and I'm Marty Day, and behind the big board today we've got Stephen Nicholas. Clay, my congratulations. That was a great show you put together last week with John Nelson and Mike Below on Obamacare and the Supreme Court decision. That was a good job.
It's not Obamacare, it's Obama tax.
That's true. It is Obama tax. Yes, that's true. I wanted to give you guys an update on our one POW in Afghanistan, Sergeant Bo Bergdahl. We now have, you ready for this, over 210,000 signatures that'll be presented in Washington next month to try to bring him home. The website, if you'd like to print out a petition, is dosalute.net. Let's bring this guy home. The petition ends July 31st, but so far we've got over 210,000 signatures.
And what's interesting is all they wanted to get was 30,000 initially, and then they got on the Clay and Marty show, and this thing just took off.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, I mean, to our credit, because we've spread this thing around, they called us the other day and told us that we're responsible for everything they've gotten out of California, and so far it's about 20,000 signatures.
Wow.
So thank God we were able to help a little bit. So, speaking of veterans, since this is Veterans Day weekend, in the second half of the program, we actually have a guest who's in studio with us right now. He's going to participate in the first half of the program, and that's our old buddy Jeremy Stott, who just finished his wall-to-wall bike ride from the wall in Bakersfield to the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C. How are you, Jeremy?
I'm doing very well. Let's make sure we clarify that it was a bicycle, not a bike, because people
they
might
that's
think
true.
that's a motorcycle.
That's true, and I'm a bicyclist, so I should know the difference. I'm sorry.
With training wheels.
No, that was Wesley's. Wesley's had training wheels. Jeremy, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Thanks, good to be back.
And our guest in the first half of the program is a guest that Clay and I had the honor of interviewing earlier this month on Scott Cox's show, and that's Eric Blehm to talk about his new book, Fearless: The Story of SEAL Team 6. Eric, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Thanks for having me on your show.
And Eric, I understand congratulations are in order.
Well, yeah, the book's been doing really well.
Yeah, it hit number 7 on the New York Times bestseller list.
It did, and we're just really excited. The Brown family, they wanted Adam's story told, and they're just so fired up. The response and people writing in, being inspired by Adam's story and what he rose above. It's great.
Yeah, it's incredible. Now, let's talk about Adam Brown. Who was Adam Brown?
Well, in a nutshell, the story of Adam Brown is the prodigal son meets SEAL Team 6. It's a story of a kid that all of us know, that kid that is the guy who says please and thank you, sir and ma'am, opens doors for men and women alike. The kid who was the honor roll student, he stood up against the bullies when they were picking on the underdogs on the schoolyard, and Adam Brown was kind of a little guy, so he didn't even realize it, but he was an underdog himself. And fast forward into the college years, and he got into some trouble. He tried crack cocaine one fateful night, and it became just a horrible, lifelong war, a battle that he fought for forever. He turned into it, in his own words, I was a criminal, I was a dirtbag, stole from his own family to support his habit, multiple felonies, and jail, and was able to rise above all that and got a second chance and joined the Navy and rose all the way to the top tier.
You know, Eric, it's funny because last time we interviewed you, this was one question in the middle of everything I didn't ask, but how the heck did he get in the Navy with that kind of background?
Well, I'll tell you what, this is a classic example of how your reputation will precede you. When he went into the recruiter's office after he'd had all these issues, and the recruiter says right off the bat, you know, kind of as an aside, yeah, you know, if you have any criminal record or anything like that, you might want to tell me now because we're going to need to know about that. And he just rattled off, yeah, I have 11 felonies, I stole a handgun, I was in jail, I was addicted to crack cocaine, heroin, speedballs, marijuana, methamphetamines, and he rattles all this off, and the recruiter looks at him and he leans into him and he says, is this a joke? Are you kidding? And he said, no. He said, but that's behind me. I'm taking a turn in my life, and that's not going to do that anymore. And he said, and maybe that guy right there could help me out. Maybe he'd vouch for me. And there's 2 pictures in the recruiting office wall. One of them is then President Bill Clinton, and the other one was a highly decorated Navy Commodore. He was a captain, and he was in charge of all recruiting in that entire half of the country. and he said, call him, maybe he'll vouch for me. Well, it ends up that Roger Bushman was the father of a buddy of his, of Adam Brown's, when he was a kid. And Roger Bushman had witnessed Adam's character at a young age. He saw how he was a little kid on the football field who would always take on the biggest guys, wouldn't quit, always got up. And also, on one occasion, he was having a slumber party at his house. His own son snuck out to crash a girls' slumber party down the street. They all got busted. And then they find Adam still sleeping in his bed, and he asked him, Adam, why didn't you go with the guys? And he said, well, sir, my mom and dad told me not to leave the house without permission, sir.
Wow.
And there was a couple stories like that. He had gone to a lake party at age 15, and his mom said, you can go, but you have to wear your life vest the whole time, because he didn't trust his swimming abilities, which is funny. He becomes a SEAL. But at 15, that is not cool. When you're hanging out with a bunch of girls and guys on boats on a lake, drinking and having a good time, not cool to wear a bright orange life vest. And he did the whole time. And when people were egging him on and bugging him, saying, "Dude, your mom's not here. Take that stupid thing off," Adam would say, "No big deal. I promised."
Wow.
And Roger Bush remembered that. He put his career on the line, and he told that recruiting office, the recruiter, he said, "Treat him like he's my own son. I'll sign all the waivers."
Wow. We're having a conversation with Eric Blehm, author of Fearless, Story of SEAL Team 6.
Hey, Eric, this is Clay. I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that when he was on all his drugs and into all of it, having all his problems, he was at a buddy's house, and his mom and dad actually are the ones that called the police.
Yes.
And had the police go to the house, and the dad went in the front door, and the mom stood at the back door when he ran out the back door. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, they got to a point where they knew Adam had to hit rock bottom, and they had some friends that he had been stealing from, pressed charges, and when he had these warrants out for his arrest, they ultimately found out where he was, because he would disappear for weeks at a time sometimes. And they went over to this house, and Dad went to the front door, Mom went to the back, and he said that they knew what was going to happen. And the minute his dad knocked on the door, he came bolting out the back. His mom grabbed him, and she just said, "Adam, don't run." And she held him by the wrist and walked around the corner. They had already called the sheriff, and they came over there. And Adam said that vision, when they put him into the backseat of the Garland County Cruiser, closed the door, and he saw his mom's legs buckle, and her head went into his dad's chest, and she was just sobbing. And that vision haunted him. But as we find out, that was really the defining moment that it changed who he became. I mean, it haunted him, but it defined what his future was, because he just felt absolutely horrible, and it really drove home seeing what he was doing to his mom and dad. But he was just powerless over it. He said that when he did it, it was the time that he sold his soul, and he said it was a voice that just called his name.
Eric, I've got 4 kids, and my youngest kid I have that same problem with. And there comes a point as a parent where you have to make that tough love decision, and some kids don't make it, and some of them do, but you have to make that decision because they're not going to be able to do it on their own. Now, so he gets into service, and he went through a number of injuries that he had before during the SEAL Team 6 process, right?
Oh yeah, he had injuries that would have ended most careers. He had his right eye was shot out with a Sims round, training kind of a paint bullet propelled by gunpowder, snuck in past his glasses and took his eye. It hit directly on his eye, shattered his cornea and damaged muscles in his right eye. In Afghanistan, his Humvee rolled in a combat zone while they were moving from point A to point B, and holding the hand of the side of the window like you do. Crushed his fingers off. His buddies didn't even realize that he was giving aid to a guy in the back seat that had some steel driven through his leg, and he was hemorrhaging and had compound fractures, and he was just working on this guy, and finally someone noticed. They realized that his fingers were just hanging by skin, and they just was a mess. And he said, "No, don't worry about it. Let's take care of Billy here. Let's get him out of this machine." And that was just the way he was. But he refused to retire. He would not take a medical retirement. He just said, "You know what, I signed up. I have a job to do. I haven't done what I want to do yet." And even with those injuries, he continued to qualify. He taught himself to shoot left-handed, both pistol and rifle, passed sniper school shooting left-handed. But the toughest part was the CQB, the close quarters combat, where you literally have to make split-second decisions at the highest level, and he didn't have peripheral vision on that right side. Plus, he was shooting left-handed. I mean, imagine World Series baseball, something much, much less stressful and not as life-threatening. It was, your coach says, hey, you're going to bat left-handed and throw left-handed now in 6 months in the World Series, and you have to perform flawlessly. And Adam Brown basically did that at that level only as a Warrior and still qualified at that top-tier level. People have told me that it's unprecedented what he was able to overcome and just would not quit.
Being left-handed. Let's pick up there in a moment when we get back. We'll be back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180.